So with that said, let's talk about repping the league right from the jump. Oregon Ducks. They are the front runner. They are the team for the college football playoff from our league, obviously, with one loss right now. Their one loss we could talk about, and we will talk about a ton. This week, for context, is the first week that we present to the CFP. So Commissioner George Kleofkoff, Merton Hanks, Jim Thornby, myself will be on these calls every Thursday, or this coming Thursday, with the two representatives of the Pac-12, and you present your best case argument for the college football playoff. And Oregon got a big win on the road, down 14-0. They storm back, take a huge lead. UCLA comes back, and they get a big stop. And now we're talking about college football playoff and Oregon running the table the rest of the way, fellas, as they have Colorado coming into town this weekend. So let's just start there, and let's talk playoff and the Ducks. Yeah. That's the narrative. Ted, what do you think?
So here's I started thinking about this in the wee hours of Sunday morning flying home. Suppose, and it's a huge if, I know, but Oregon's schedule, now that they survived this UCLA test, their schedule coming home, not so rough. I mean, they have the rivalry game. We get that. Beyond that, not so rough. Ohio State's schedule, very rough in November. Yeah. But just suppose they run the table, both of them. And now you're saying, okay, who with identical records? And Oregon beat him head to head on Ohio State's field. And Kayvon Thibodeau, the most impactful player without question in the conference this year, didn't play. All right. So now you see Sunday morning, I get home and I look at the polls, and Oregon State barely registers a blip in the poll. Okay, it's pretty clear where the conference's national standing is right now. We don't need to opine about it. The results speak for themselves. So now that's my question. That happens, guys. Does Oregon stand up and say, and the Pac-12 stand up and say, our guy beat your guy on your field head to head? We should be in.
One person agrees, or at least Nicole Auerbach, who writes for The Athletic, who is an excellent writer, the 2020 Sports Writer of the Year, right now has Oregon 4 and Ohio State 5 in her poll for the very reasons you mentioned. They won on their field. And I think it plays out at the end. All that other stuff fades away. We get through the smoke, and it becomes they played and someone won in Columbus. You got to put the Ducks in. That's what I would say.
Yeah, that's going to be the dialogue. Once they start up next week, the ranking shows, it's going to be the same metrics, right? Ranked wins. And ranked wins matter when you play them, right? That's how they discuss that. So, Ted, you reference Ohio State. Penn State ranked this weekend. Nebraska not ranked. Purdue currently ranked. Michigan State ranked. And we know the rivalry game against Michigan ranked. So that'll be the dialogue, I think, as we go. I think for Duck fans, you want Utah to win this weekend probably. Or if UCLA does, they win out. You want Arizona State or anybody that contends for the Pac-12 South to keep winning or get winning again. And the Beavs to keep going to give yourself a chance here with the ranking side of it.
So Yogi, here's a question. Does Oregon want Ohio State to win out?
Probably not.
Really? But it would make their win look great, right? I mean, that's what I'm asking. That's the collision, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. It'll be interesting because here's the deal with the committee. And I've just kind of briefed myself in preparation for the meeting that I referenced on, like, what do they look at? And it's very clear in text for best teams. What is not clear is how do you determine that as an individual voter? Is it body of work? Is it the best right now? I'm a firm believer in body of work. I know a lot of people disagree with that. The reason that I believe in that is that if we were going with the 4 best, then why would we play the season? Because the 4 best rosters are pretty clear. Yeah. Alabama, Ohio, you know the deal when you look at that. So we'll see. I always go back to this, Ted, and it bothered me last year when Notre Dame made the playoff, is that when we teach our kids and as we watch sport, in pretty much every realm of sport comes down to if you lose, you don't advance when it comes to a playoff championship type setting. Notre Dame lost in the ACC title game last year. They still went to the playoff. I think that if you lose head to head, you shouldn't get in over somebody if your record is the same. And I'll be curious to see how that nets out because that's a legit discussion because both teams play 9 conference games. Both teams would have, they'd have their arguments, right? CJ Stroud has grown, Anthony Brown has grown, I mean, on and on and on. Obviously, Kayvon Thibodeau's making a late push here that we're going to talk about here in the Heisman possibly. So I hope that's a discussion next week when the rankings come out, if Oregon does what we think they'll do.
All right. So Michael, of course, provides us the humanity moment. I'm here in my role as the podcast fossil to provide the history moment. 1993.
Oh, yeah.
Mid-November, Notre Dame beats Florida State head-to-head. The following week, Notre Dame loses to Boston College on a last-second kick. Both Notre Dame and Florida State win their bowl games. They both finished with identical records. I guess 11-1 or 12-1, whatever it was in 93. Anyway, identical records. Notre Dame beat them head-to-head in November, not in week one, in November. And we had no CFP then. We had no BCS. It was a straight vote. Florida State won the national championship. Very clear. Voters had combinations of Notre Dame hatred, Notre Dame fatigue, Lou Holtz fatigue, Bobby Bowden love. Bobby Bowden had never won the national championship, and the media loved him because he was Bobby Bowden. So there it was. The head-to-head didn't matter. They played each other in November, and the voters there was no playoff. The voters gave Florida State the championship. That's what I fear about the Oregon-Ohio State scenario, should it be to happen. Because back to my point about where the national presence of our league is again, now we have one team ranked in the top 25 in Oregon, and now BYU is in with 2 losses. Well, can't argue that. They lead the Pac-12 right now. But that Oregon State barely got any votes, that scares me.
Yeah. What's interesting is Michigan State becomes a really big game this weekend, right? Because you want Michigan State to win. I think out of the 2 teams, Michigan State hasn't looked as impressive as Michigan, right? So to the point of we're talking Ohio State a ton. Well, what if Michigan's undefeated and they win the Big Ten? Yeah. Right? And now we're talking Big 12. Oklahoma has not looked the part. They're ranked number 4, and to me, that's a sad state of affairs. And that's where I would agree with Nicole and anybody else, because I'd imagine Oklahoma is way below Oregon in her poll. So yeah, I don't know. And let's be straight up. The AP poll is fun to talk about. It means 0. So I'm curious where the committee, these esteemed members, how do they see it, right? Rick George is on that committee. I'm sure you have to recuse yourself at times, but he'll be able to offer context coming off this weekend in Eugene with Colorado and Oregon in that game.